Assalamu alaikum. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim ghairil maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Ameen. ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إسرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين آمين وصلى اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Welcome, my dear friends. Happy Sunday. I hope you can hear me. All right, so I think Brother Ali is going to join soon, inshallah. So we'll start. So we were discussing from the rays, the 11th ray, the 10th topic on page 266. And this topic is on the repetition that is observed in the Quran. And the author has been sharing his take on what the repetition is also another miraculous aspect that it is something that is really beneficial for us because we need repetition, just like we eat, we drink. That's a repetitive task we have to do. We feel hungry and we're reminded where the hunger is coming from, so that when we get food, we can connect with our Lord. So it's all the repetition is because of our human need. And the last point that we discussed was even the prayer of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was directly coming from the Quran. It's called the Joshan al-Kabir. And it's another way of, or is recognizing again the human need and praising and glorifying the Lord based on that need. So connecting our human needs with who can satisfy those needs. Now we're going to discuss the wisdom and meaning of the Meccan and Medinan surahs in the Quran of miraculous exposition, being different in regard to eloquence, miraculousness, and detail. Brevity is as follows, So the Quran, as we know, has been revealed to the Prophet via the angel Gabriel in different times across his life, probably like about 23 years in Mecca and Medina. So that's where the distinction has been made by some academics. They've said, okay, when they're assembling the Quran, that this are classified as the verses or sections from Mecca that were revealed in Mecca, and the others in his migration to Medina. So in Mecca, the first line of those it was addressing, and those opposed to it were the idolaters of the Quraysh and untaught tribesmen. So in Mecca, the first line of those the Quran was addressing, and those opposed to the Quran were the idolaters of the Quraysh and untaught tribesmen. So a powerful and elevated rhetorical style was necessary. A powerful and elevated rhetorical style was necessary because it's the first line of those it was addressing. They had no exposure to any religion. They had no culture, as we see in history. In Medina, at least, there was some exposure to some culture because of the Jewish tribes that were neighboring. This is from the historical aspect, but in the Mecca, from what I know, and of course, you guys can help me, free to comment on that, but there was really no culture of any kind except pretty much the tribalism was the culture, worshiping the tribal leaders and as it says, the idolaters of the Quraysh and untaught tribesmen, and mostly unlettered, no culture kind of tribes. So a powerful and elevated rhetorical style was necessary to catch the attention. And a miraculous, convincing, persuasive conciseness. A miraculous, convincing. So it should convince, persuasive, conciseness. Should be short, not too lengthy and detailed in explanation, to the point, conciseness. And in order to establish this, the convincing, persuasive conciseness, repetition was required. Okay. So definitely I agree with the powerful and elevated rhetorical style was necessary. Miraculous, convincing, persuasive conciseness. So in order to establish such things, repetition was required. Because persuasion cannot happen if it's concise and have to be reminded of it. That's how I'm understanding this. Thus, in most of the Meccan surahs, repeating and expressing the pillars of belief, most of the Meccan surahs, repeating and expressing the pillars of belief and degrees in the affirmation of divine unity with the most powerful, elevated, and miraculous conciseness. It proved so powerfully the first creation and the resurrection. It proved so powerfully the first creation and the resurrection. So it's focusing the Makki surahs, the surahs from Mecca are more focused towards the pillar of belief, repeating and expressing the pillars of belief and degrees in affirmation of divine unity with the most powerful, elevated, and miraculous conciseness. It proved so powerfully the first creation and the resurrection. God and the hereafter, not only in a single page, verse, sentence, or word, but sometimes in a letter. Through grammatical devices like altering the positions of the words or sentences, making a word indefinite, and omissions and inclusions, that the geniuses and leaders of the science of rhetoric met it with wonder. The Risale-i-Nur and the 25th word and its addenda in particular, which prove in summary 40 aspects of the Quran's miraculousness, and the Quranic commentary, Isharat al-Ijaz, from the Arabic Risale-i-Nur, which in wondrous fashion proves the aspect of the Quran's miraculousness in its word order, have demonstrated in fact that in the Meccan surahs and verses are the highest styles of eloquence and the most elevated, concise miraculousness. So this is how the Meccan surahs, as we've been talking. First, line of those it was addressing, first addressees. So it had to be something more powerful and elevated in his speech. And it had to catch their attention. So that's why it had to be persuasive and concise, convincing, and focus more on the pillars of belief and the degrees in the affirmation of divine unity. It talks about powerfully about creation, resurrection, God, hereafter. That's why the short surahs that we see in the 30th section of the Quran are amazingly, they're like very concise, very strong words, one would think, and see that open to interpretation, of course, and each word can be just interpreted in various different ways, as you can see from the translations of many people and the commentaries by many authors. It varies tremendously as well. There could be volumes that can be written. So if you look at, for example, Qul hu Allahu Ahad, Allahu Samad, those kind of verses are very, very persuasive and very concise, very small, but declaring a powerful message. So I guess we can see that when we study the Quran and the verses from Mecca, how the themes of the 5 pillars or the 6 pillars of belief and the degrees in the affirmation of divine unity, how it's emphasized, how the creation of human, the qualities that are being given, the universe, resurrection, hereafter, all are discussed and reminded to the readers. And of course, please feel free to share your comments, how you experience it as well while you're engaging, interacting with the Quran, when you see the sort of repetitions that are coming or the language, how it's addressing. Do you see the persuasiveness, convincing, conciseness? And does it, you feel that it's talking about creation, resurrection, hereafter? So these are the things we can look into while we are engaged with the Quran. As for the Medinan surahs and verses, since the first line of those they were addressing, and who opposed them were the people of the book, the Jews and Christians, who affirmed God's existence. What was required by eloquence and guidance, and for the discussion to correspond to the situation, was not explanation of the high principles of religion and pillars of belief in a simple, clear, and detailed style, but the explanation of particular matters in the Sharia and its injunctions, which were the cause of dispute and the origins and causes of secondary matters and general laws. Thus, in the Medinan surahs and verses, through explanations in a detailed, clear, simple style, in the matchless manner of exposition peculiar to the Quran mostly mentions within those particular secondary matters, a powerful and elevated summary, a conclusion and proof, a sentence related to divine unity, belief, or the hereafter, which makes the particular matter of the Sharia universal, and ensures that it conforms to belief in God. It illuminates the passage and elevates it. The Risale-i-Nur has proved the qualities and fine points and elevated eloquence in the summaries and conclusions, which express divine unity and the hereafter. And come mostly at the end of the verse, like, indeed, God is powerful over all things. Quran section 2, Baqarah verse 20. Verily, God has knowledge of all things. So this is section 29, verse 62. 20. And he is the mighty, the wise. Section 30, verse 27. And he is exalted in might, most compassionate. Section 30, verse 5. Explaining in the second beam of the second light of the 25th word 10 out of the many fine points of those summaries and conclusions, it has proved to the obstinate that they contain a supreme miracle. I'll continue reading. This is still mentioning about the Medinan surahs. Yes, in expounding those secondary matters of the Sharia and laws of social life. So expounding the secondary matters of the Sharia and laws of social life, the Quran at once raises the views of those it addresses to elevated universal points, and transforming a simple style into an elevated one, and instruction in the Sharia to instruction in divine unity. So transforming a simple style into an elevated one, and instruction in the Sharia to instruction in divine unity. So the verses are phrased in such a way that it may be mentioning about an aspect of Sharia. So while talking about secondary matters, which would be something about instructions in Sharia, but it gets transformed into an instruction on divine unity. So with phrases such as the examples used here. Indeed, God is powerful over all things. Verily, God has knowledge of all things. And he is the mighty, the wise, and he is exalted in might, most compassionate. So it shows, the Quran shows it is both a book of law and commands and wisdom. A book of law and commands and wisdom. It is a book of the tenets of faith and belief, and of invocation and reflection and summons. Invocation, reflection, and summons. And through teaching many of the aims of Quranic guidance in every passage, it displays a brilliant and miraculous eloquence different to that of the Meccan surahs. Brilliant and miraculous eloquence different to that of the Meccan surahs. So if you know a little bit of history, you can see in Medina, they had exposure to some of the culture of other traditions, such as Jewish and Christians, some surrounding tribes from what I've heard. But whoever is studying this may know more. So if you would like to share your thoughts and feelings on the Mecca and Medina sections of the Quran, and how the eloquence changes and how the style differs. But according to the wisdom and the style changes according to the situations and how the verses are laid out. And the thing that I took away was more about how even in the seemingly secondary matters of Sharia and injunctions, it ties up to the pillars of belief and divine unity, belief in the hereafter. So everything gets tied to a universal message. So anybody would like to share their thoughts, their comments? Perhaps you're studying this or noticing this, feeling this. All right. So it's interesting how, depending on how you look at it, it could be a book of law and commands, but at the same time, it could be a book of the pillars of belief and a book of prayers, reflection. So it could fulfill many, many things for an individual, whoever's reading it. So sometimes in two words, for example, in sustainer of all the worlds, and your sustainer, through the phrase, your sustainer, the Quran expresses divine oneness. And through sustainer of all the worlds, divine unity. The Quran expresses the divine oneness within divine unity. In a single sentence, even it sees and situates a particle in the pupil of an eye. In a single sentence, even it sees and situates a particle in the pupil of an eye, and with the same verse, the same hammer, it situates the sun in the sky, making it an eye to the sky. It situates the sun. The Quran situates the sun in the sky, making it an eye to the sky. For example, after the verse, who created the heavens and the earth? Following the verse, he merges the night into the day, and he merges the day into the night. It says, and he has full knowledge of all that is in man's hearts. Quran, section 57, verses 4 to 6. He merges the night into the day, and he merges the day into the night. So who created the heavens and the earth, and he has full knowledge of all that is in man's hearts. It says, within the vast majesty of the creation of the earth and the skies, so the vast majesty of the creation of the earth and the skies, he knows and regulates the thoughts of the hearts. Wow. And so coming from the heavens and the earth, and he has full knowledge of all that is in man's heart. He knows and regulates the thoughts of the heart. Through an exposition of this sort, it transforms that simple, unlettered level and particular discussion, which takes into account the minds of ordinary people, into an elevated, attractive, and general conversation for the purpose of guidance. Let me read this again. So through the verses that are stated like in such a manner, where it talks about a universal aspect who created the heavens and the earth, and then comes to state about that he has full knowledge of all that is in man's hearts. It says, within the vast majesty of the creation of the earth and the skies, he knows and regulates the thoughts of the heart. Through an exposition of this sort, it transforms that simple, unlettered level and particular discussion, which takes into account the minds of ordinary people, into an elevated, attractive, and general conversation for the purpose of guidance. So from those, by mentioning such as statements like created the heavens and the earth, I'm supposed to get guidance for the purpose of guidance. So there's a reason why the phrasing and the structures are set in that way. So it has to be something that should fulfill my need, and it should be a means of guidance for me. I mean, I'm going to say, so, okay, so he created the heavens and the earth. All right, good. What's in it for me? But then it continues on, and then that would be something at a simple, unlettered level. That's why it has to come in to my level where the discussion has to touch me as well, in terms of it has to, as he says, into an elevated, attractive, and general conversation for the purpose of guidance. All right, so I'll pause here to hear if anybody would like to share anything or no comments by anyone. So the differences between Makkah surahs and Medina surahs and the miraculousness on the style, the eloquence, the topics it touches, and then the example that's used.
Like, I'm just going to say, I like what you shared about different stages and situations in life make us reflect on the existential level of things from different angles. So pretty much how the Quran classifies Makki and Madani surahs are based on our stages and experiences and situations in life as well. So that was my takeaway. Thank you for sharing. I'm sure you said more.
No, thank you for your comment. I mean, definitely everything that is being shared is for our benefit, even although we are not in Mecca or Medina right now, many of us. But there is a need for human beings to look at how the address is to when I read it or when I engage with it. And of course, as a reader who is aware and conscious, I do see the differences in the short surahs, which were mostly revealed in the Mecca, and how their language and the expression and manner of revealing is very different from the longer surahs such as Baqarah and that were revealed in Medina and deals with a lot of different things. But then again, in those things, there is the aspect of bringing you back, the reader, to the pillars of faith, to divine unity, understanding the absoluteness of God, going to understanding that there is a hereafter accountability of that, there is divine determining. So all those matters are touched throughout the Quran, regardless of where, if it's Mecca or Medina. But the rhetoric is a little different in Mecca versus Medina, and more powerful, and to the point conciseness is more in the Mecca surahs. So any other comment? Who would like to share anything?
Thank you, Pai. That was very beneficial. So it's interesting you mentioned that the Meccan surahs are short, or I don't know whichever one, but doesn't matter. So there are some surahs that are short. So it's also related to how different stages of our lives, when we are much younger, when we reflect on things, we're able to analyze it quickly, hence short surahs. As we grow older, things get complicated and you're trying to analyze things, reflect on things. So hence longer surahs pretty much resonates with the reflection phase. Just some thoughts that occurred while you were sharing.
So at what stage of the human journey one is at? Yes, that should make a different meaning. Thank you. So should we continue then, if no other comments? A question. Sometimes an important truth is not apparent to a superficial view. Yeah, that happens. An important truth is not apparent to the superficial view. And in some positions, the connection is not known. When a concise phrase expounding divine unity or a universal principle is drawn out from a minor, ordinary matter, or a universal principle is drawn out from a minor, ordinary matter, and it is imagined to be lacking a fault. For example, to mention the extremely elevated principle and overall endued with knowledge, one knowing, which is Quran section 12, verse 76. When Joseph, peace be upon him, seized his brother through subterfuge, does not appear to be in keeping with eloquence. What is its meaning and purpose? What does subterfuge mean, actually? I don't know. Used in order to achieve one's goal. Deceit you, okay, so like a stratagem in the section Joseph, yes. When I think he placed a cup or something, and some interpretations have thought that it was something that Joseph's doing in terms of his strategy to get close to his brothers. So that depends on the interpretation. When Joseph sees his brother through subterfuge, does not appear to be in keeping with eloquence. What is its meaning and purpose? So when we read verses such as these, and overall endued with knowledge, one knowing, referring to how Joseph got close to his brothers. So the answer. In most of the long and middle length surahs, which are each small Qurans, and in many pages and passages, not only 2 or 3 aims are followed, for by its nature the Quran comprises many books and teachings. Such as being a book of invocation, belief, and reflection. a book of law, wisdom, and guidance. So in most of the long and middle length surahs, which are each small Qurans, and in many pages and passages, not only 2 or 3 aims are followed by its nature, the Quran comprises. So by definition, the Quran comprises many books and teachings, such as it will teach me prayers, invocation, reflection, belief. It would instruct me how to live my life, wisdom, and guidance. So many ways I can benefit. Thus, since it describes the majestic manifestations of divine dominicality and it's encompassing all things. So the Quran describes the majestic manifestations of divine dominicality, and the result of which is it's encompassing all things. So dominicality necessitates that it encompasses all things as a sort of recitation of the mighty book of the universe. So it's a sort of recitation of the mighty book of the universe. It follows many aims in every discussion. So the Quran follows many aims in every discussion, and sometimes on a single page. So many aims in every discussion and sometimes on a single page. While instructing in knowledge of God, the degrees in divine unity, and the truths of belief. While instructing in knowledge of God, the degrees of divine unity, and the truths of belief with an apparently weak connection. It may appear to be a weak connection. It opens another subject of instruction in the following passage. Joining powerful connections to the weak one. It corresponds perfectly to the discussion and raises the level of eloquence. Interesting answer. So I'm sure we have noticed while how the Quran seems to be jumping from one topic to another topic. Mentions story of one prophet and then goes and remember our other prophet, how we did this to him and how his people did this or that. It has a theme that goes in that kind of manner. As if there's apparently it seems like what is the connection between this and that, but one part and then the continuing part. What is the connection? It may seem as if they're disconnected, but it's one of the ways this rhetoric of the Quran mentions and uses to gain our attention to what its main point is, which is for our belief, reflection, book of invocation, instruction, wisdom, and guidance. I mean, once we engage with the book as of the Quran as well as the universe, there has to be, these aspects have to be touched upon. But this is specifically talking about the repetitions in the Quran and how that is really necessary for human beings because we are in need of that. As we need to come back on the straight path, Sirat al-Mustaqim. We may divert from the path time to time, but then we have to be reminded again to come back to the path. So it's our need to be guided and brought back into the right, fall in the proper path. It opens another subject of instruction in the following passage, joining powerful connections to the weak one. The Quran corresponds perfectly to the discussion and raises the level of eloquence. Any comment on this question and answer? Although it may seem, he says, such phrases or verses such as these, and overall endued with knowledge, one knowing, referring to the story of Joseph, that there is a powerful connection that can be made, but we have to do it. We have to engage with it and see it. All right, so let's go to the second question. What is the wisdom and purpose of the Quran proving and drawing attention to the hereafter? The question is, what is the wisdom and purpose of the Quran proving and drawing attention to the hereafter? Divine unity, so draws attention to hereafter, divine unity, and man's reward and punishment thousands of times. Explicitly, implicitly, and allusively. And teaching them in every surah, on every page, and in every discussion. So resurrection, hereafter, divine unity, man's reward and punishment, thousands of times are being mentioned explicitly, implicitly, and allusively in every section of the Quran. The answer is a very good question. I think we can relate to that. How many times it says, oh, these people are going to be going to hell, they'll suffer severe punishment, and the ones who follow the prophetic path, they will be rewarded, they will get gardens with rivers. So many times it's repeated. So in order to teach concerning the most momentous matters in the sphere of contingency, which is the sphere we live in, this contingent world, our existence has to be continuously given to us. The universe has to be continuously being given existence. So we are in the sphere of contingency. And the revolutions in the universe's history, and the most important, most significant, most awesome matters related to man's duties, which, since he has undertaken the supreme trust, so man has undertaken the supreme trust and vicegerency of the earth, will lead to either his perdition or everlasting happiness. And in order to remove his countless doubts, and to smash his violent denials and obduracy. Smash his ego, his violent denials, and his obduracy. In order to remove his countless doubts and to smash his violent denials and obduracy. I think that is something interesting. Because in this life we may fall, it's very likely. We have to as humans. We need to be reminded all the time to come to the right path. And we're bombarded with all sorts of different thoughts and ideas by civilization. Many of them are in denial of the absoluteness of the Lord. throws us into cause and effect kind of scenarios where we forget that we are in a sphere of contingency. So we do need reminders. Indeed, to make man confirm those awesome revolutions and submit to those most necessary, essential matters, which are as great as the revolutions. To make man confirm those awesome revolutions and submit to those most necessary, essential matters, which are as great as the revolutions. If the Quran draws his attention to them thousands or even millions of times, it is not excessive. For those discussions in the Quran are read millions of times, and they do not cause boredom, nor does the need cease. All right, let me try to see how he's making the case here in his answer. In order to teach concerning the most momentous matters in the sphere of contingency. So there is a need to teach the most momentous matters which are never spoken about in our day-to-day life, probably, as we engage with the world. I don't know many people who would remind us of what our purpose in existence is, what are we doing here, our need for eternal happiness, or if we're not following, what are we losing? So the most important, we need to realize what is most important in our life. How are we using our minutes, our seconds, our hours? Most significant, most awesome matters related to man's duties. And of course, the purpose of the creation of man and how his status is so much elevated as it's given the supreme trust and vicegerency of the earth as a conscious human being. What that holds. Of course, the author touches that aspect in some other sections. But here he's just jumping over to if man realizes what responsibility he holds, what duties he has, and is he really fulfilling them, which are very important and most significant matters in man's life. So, and that will either lead to his perdition or everlasting happiness. And in order to remove his countless doubts and to smash his violent denials and obduracy, indeed to make man confirm, so submit and confirm those awesome revolutions and submit to those most necessary, essential matters, which are as great as the revolutions. I mean, they're so essential and important. He says, as great as the revolutions. There must be revolutionary in our life. So the human need is for those revolutions to happen, to get back on the track of being guided, of holding that supreme trust that we've been given. So if we have to be reminded of that, it is not excessive. For those discussions in the Quran are read millions of times, and they do not cause boredom, nor does the need cease. So the need is always there. The need never goes away, and thus millions of times we need to be reminded of that. Would anybody like to share anything on this aspect? On how the author has been addressing the second question, and of course it's a very human question, I would think. I mean, the first one was a question as well, which many times we run into verses and we we now realize its connection with all the pillars of belief. And the second question is where we see all these verses talking about the hereafter, punishment, paradise. And of course, it's mentioned in pretty much every section in Surah, if we realize it. And of course, it's because our needs never end. We are always in need of being given existence. We are in need of being guided every time. It's not a one-time thing, I'm guided and that's it, I'm done. Nothing like that. It's a continuous journey of the human being. Any thoughts? Any comments?
Yeah, interesting point about we're in need of guidance all the time. And it's funny how guidance comes also in different shapes and form. And even just seeking it out also, we seek it out from different venues, but at the end of the day, we kind of try to reconcile matters with what fits in within our human nature and ourselves. So yeah, every moment we're in need of guidance. Although I may not realize it, but and then sometimes I do wonder about guidance, because every moment we are put in situation, not every moment, but like once in a while, situations where you're really looking for guidance and you're like, okay, nothing of this universe can help me. Definitely there's this need of the one who puts me in the situation or the one who provides me existence to help me out with it. And I mean, I think that's the whole human endeavor or the human journey where I keep going on in this quest to search for the source of my existence. And that's where the guidance comes in, I feel.
Agreed. Thank you for sharing that. I find it sometimes hilarious in the civilization culture. Sometimes they ask you, have you finished reading the Quran? The first times a kid reads the Quran, they wait for his finishing the Quran. And then when you grow up, you realize, well, how the guidance is not just, finishing something you're not never done. Even after graduating from college or school, one realizes the degree is not enough. You need to continue your learning journey. It just never ends. So graduation happens at the death of the individual. So it's always a continuous struggle, continuous fulfillment of duties, continuous striving, continuous need, hunger, thirst. So the need for guidance is also a continuous thing. And of course, we definitely need the reminders many times to realize that these matters, important matters related to man's duties, since man is in charge, responsible, has taken the supreme trust and vicegerency of earth. The potential that man is given, definitely the reminders are needed. All right, I think we can stop here for today, and next time we will start from this example. Inshallah, some other examples from the verses. I appreciate your comments, your thoughtful presence being here. बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम सुब्हानका ला इल्मा लना इल्ला मा अल्लमतना इन्नका अंतल अलीमुल हकीम व आखिरु दावाहुम अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन बिहुर्मति सूरतिल फातिहा।